Hey everyone, Dex here. Welcome back to another episode of Gearing Up for Beyond Light for New Lights. Today we are talking about, so far, the most requested episode, builds. Now, there's a lot to cover in this. We're gonna try and go a little bit through it as much as we can and go in depth as much as we can. But keep in mind, builds are ever evolving with Destiny. Stuff shows up when we talk about seasonal mods. You'll see what I mean when things come in and out. And really, you guys just have to kind of keep up a little bit with like some of the trends. We're going to go over a few things here that'll probably help get you started with builds, start realizing certain things that you can maybe use to build some synergy with your classes and abilities and different things like that. Stasis is going to throw an absolute curveball into this. I already have some ideas for builds going into Stasis, even though we're not even there yet. I have a few ideas for some Titan stuff that actually is kind of exciting, but you know, we're gonna get there once Stasis actually drops. But thank you guys for watching the videos and everything so far. Let's jump into this and start breaking this down. So first off, what you're gonna want to understand about your characters is the stat breakdown here. Okay, so this is kind of like your base cooldowns for abilities and other things like that in Destiny. So movement speed, jump height, we went over these before. The amount of damage you can take before dying. This one has a little bit extra, but just keep in mind recovery is how fast you regain your health. Obviously, discipline is your grenades, little grenade emblem there. So the higher this is, the faster your cooldown on grenades. Intellect handles your super ability, how often you can use that. And then strength is your melee cooldown. So those are the base stats that you want to consider. Now, important ones you kind of need to make sure you know on the Warlock. And we covered this a long time ago, but on the Warlock, let me get this off the screen there. On the Warlock, the main stat that you want to keep an eye on is the recovery. So on a Warlock, the recovery is the cooldown for your class ability, so your Rift. That is tied to recovery. On a Hunter, mobility is tied to your dodge cooldown. So all your class abilities. So the higher your mobility, the faster your dodge cools down. On a Titan, resilience is what ties to your barricades, your walls. So those are the ones. Now that doesn't, I actually had a conversation with somebody that thought it was, they didn't know that that is how that worked. So keep that in mind. Those are something you want to keep an eye on depending on the style of build you want to go for. If you want to be throwing walls like crazy as a Titan, you're going to want to bump that resilience up. If you want to dodge often, and we're going to see this a little bit later when we talk about a Hunter build for PvP, you're going to want to have your mobility up as high as possible so you get those dodge cooldowns. You can actually get it down to about 8-ish seconds per dodge. Really beneficial. Keep that in mind. And on a Warlock, you want to spam your rifts as much as you can, either healing or using Empowerment Rift for bonus damage. You want to get that up as well. But there is other stats you can bump into, and later when we see the Hunter build, you'll kind of understand how potentially you can build the stats. Now, these stats are derived from the armor themselves, and I actually have the wrong set on here. Let's do a quick switch over to my main base. We'll just put that one on for now. Armor sets. So with this armor, it doesn't matter which bond I use. They're all pretty much going to do the exact same thing, and it doesn't affect my build at all. So you can see I have it pretty rounded. I could go, yeah, and you know, some of this armor isn't the best armor, but it's working. This helmet actually needs to go really bad. It has way too much strength for the build if I would want. I actually would want to put this either into intellect or discipline for this my particular needs. So, but I haven't been blessed with a better Fellwinter's helm, so that's one of the things that kind of sucks, is getting those random rolls. So, you know, that's something to keep in the back of your mind. This is all very random. Now, these stats are all derived from the armor themselves. So let's say we were going to take a look at this. Actually, let's check out this one, the Fellwinters first, just because it's not masterworked, and we're going to cover this too. Okay, like I said, this is a big episode for New Lights. So if you take a look at this, you see the stats right there. So it shows the mobility, resilience, recovery, discipline, intellect, strength, and then the total stat at the bottom. Now, all of that is calculated, so anything below a 60 is kind of like, yeah, I'll keep it for now until I get something above a 60. As you start adding mods, it's going to add more things to it. So I don't use any mods in here on these builds, but for an example, if I was going to put on a discipline mod on this, you'll actually, oh, you can't actually see it. 1 second here. We'll go like this for 1 second. So when I get rid of my camera, you can actually see as I change between these mods, it increases the base stat of that by, it says 12, but it's actually by 10. So the mods specifically for these increase by 10. And we're going to cover these mods again. We got this. I'm just showing you how the stats come out, okay? So don't freak out yet. We're not there. We're getting there. Just showing you how to bump up some of the base stats. All right? So base stats are all derived from the armor. So the higher your stats are in the armor down here that you can't see again, the higher your overall stats are going to be. So all of these. Now, if you masterwork, and we're going to talk about masterworking with the affinity as well, it adds a +2 to every stat on the armor, which means if you masterwork it, you're actually adding 12 to the armor. So in this armor per se, this is actually a 62 base armor roll. So it's not bad, you know, and you can get up into those where they actually get quite high. You know, 65 or 75s right there. That's a 63 base. Here, this one here, sitting at an 83 with the masterwork. So this is quite a bit because it has the discipline mod on there. So it looks a lot higher than it actually is. This one is actually only a 61 because if you minus the 22 I got from masterworking plus putting on the discipline mod. Now, my normal build, what I'm going to show you guys a little bit later, which is the versatile high DPS build, I don't use any additional mods for my base stats. All of these stats are derived strictly from the armor themselves. I don't necessarily use a lot of them because there's better mods for PvE to help me boost survivability in raids. So, or in raids and PvE, etc., doing high level content, that kind of stuff. Now, let's talk quickly here, now that we know what these stats are, my personal opinion for priority stats per class. So for the Warlock, if I'm just thinking on PvE, because preferably I prefer Warlock for PvE content, where I really normally want to be speccing into, or what I look for in my armor, is actually these three here. So I look for recovery, discipline, and intellect. I want high armor in those stats. The reason for that is those are the three that Warlocks use the most. We throw lots of grenades. We use our rift abilities as much as we can to heal our allies or buff damage. And we also want to be casting our super. So if you're using Well, Nova Bomb, any of those, you want to be using those quite often. So those are the three stats I think are priority for Warlock. So again, that's recovery, discipline, and intellect. Now, Hunter. Hunter for PvP, I have three that I kind of personally would rather stat into specifically for PvP. And that would be mobility, recovery, and intellect. Now, the reason for that is I want to have the first super. I want to get the super fast. I want to get my health back fast. And I also want to dodge a lot. So we're going to see that actually later in the PvP build with the Hunter, why I chose those stats for myself. There is some survivability when you talk about using resilience. Personally, I don't think resilience does enough to warrant me to want to use it. You'll see why with the Hunter build. There's a reason I don't spec highly into it. Like I said, you are going to see, and it's fantastic. But keep that in mind. Resilience, there's some videos out there on YouTube. You guys can look up resilience stat for PvP. There's a minimum people recommend to have for survivability. I don't really follow that a lot just because I'm not too hardcore into PvP when it comes to a lot of this. I did a lot of this stuff already, so I'm okay with that. But that kind of thing. Titan. Titan's actually a really tricky one. I'm currently, like I was talking about with the stasis idea, I have an idea where I want to actually spec into recovery and discipline going into Beyond Light, but I'm still working on actually developing that build because we don't know as much about stasis yet. But for Titan, normally it's going to be resilience if you want to be throwing walls. You're going to probably want to spec into your intellect. And then recovery usually is going to be the way to go, just to get your health back faster. That does change. Like I said, it does change. If you're doing a melee-centric build, you're going to want to spec into strength. So depending on how you're creating your builds, guys, is how you want to build your characters and your loadouts. I know a lot of people that spec into trying to get their melees back as fast as possible, especially if they're using Dawnblade with Celestial Fire. You want to have that bump in getting your fire back to be able to throw those melees from a mile away. So those are my personal opinions on what priority stats I would go for on my characters in the armor, but I'm sure everybody has their own. If you have any ones you specifically think are great, drop them in the comment section down below. Let me know. I'll check it out. It may be kind of fun to mess around with some new builds. So let me know. And I'd love to see what you guys have talked about with your builds. So, all right, let's get into a piece of armor here and let's talk about the energy. So we're going to check out a not masterwork piece of armor here first. So energy / affinity. So affinity here determines the armor's, the affinity determines what mods can be put on the armor. Every mod has an affinity attached to it. So these ones are solar mods. There's also void mods and arc mods, which is why in the energy here on the affinity, you actually see arc and void in addition to solar. So if you're specifically looking for mods, you're going to have to scroll through. And one thing you can do, and we'll do this really quick here, is if you go into your collections, there's actually a mod tab down here. When you click this open, you'll see every mod for everything, weapons, chest pieces, all that. And you'll see here, so you can see they have these affinities. So it says energy cost, but remember the affinity is the damage type, which is what we would normally call these, or the archetypes. So this one's solar, arc, and void affinities. So if you're looking for a grenade launcher finder, let's say, for a helmet, you're going to want the helmet to be a void. If you're looking for any of the other ones, and it's just something you kind of have to get used to and scroll around and figure out as we go. So let's jump back into this one here. So that's what the affinity is. It does not, please, I had a new light player ask me this. It does not relate to your subclass. Having a solar subclass on with a solar affinity armor piece does absolutely nothing. Nothing. It does not matter if you're running a void subclass or a solar subclass with an armor affinity of solar. Doesn't matter. It just relates to the mods. Keep that in mind. Okay. Energy. So this is where you come to masterwork your armor. Energy dictates the amount of mods you can potentially equip for this. Every mod has a cost associated with it down here on the top right corner of each mod. So this one being 5 would mean if I wanted to just slot this mod, I would have to make sure I have 5 open energy slots. So right now, I can't put that on, and you can actually see the bar fills up all the way to red, telling you you don't have enough space. But if I was to go here and try to slot a 5, again, it's telling me I don't have enough space because I have a mod here already taking up one of these affinities. So if we actually remove this mod, you'll see now I have 4 empty slots, and I can actually start equipping more mods in these areas. Just make sure I don't forget that. That's got to go back on. There is a cost associated with swapping these mods out. It's Glimmer for the most part, so keep that in mind if you're starting to run low while, you know, messing around with builds. Have a bunch of Glimmer just kicking around extra for you to play with your builds with. Okay? So, that is energy. We talked about our polarity with being mod specific. So, mods. Now, you might be sitting here going, I don't get it. I don't care. Whatever. Why mods are important is you can actually use them to enhance your ability to play the game more effectively. You can make them have way more, like, ramping up damage for certain weapons or overall your weapons, like we'll see a little bit later. Mods are very important in Destiny, and a lot of people overlook them. They will improve your gameplay and your experience in Destiny tenfold just by starting to get used to using builds. Even something as simple as just slotting in some, on a Warlock's case, some recovery mods to get your Rift back faster. You're going to start noticing that, and it's going to improve your overall experience in Destiny as part of your day-to-day gameplay. In PvP, having faster cooldowns, more melees, more health even if you want to. It's something that a lot of people need to really start focusing on when they come to new players developing their builds, and start realizing early on in the game to invest in trying to achieve some of the builds in Destiny. So, where you get them? This is a bit of a tricky one. A lot of the mods you can just get by playing the game. They'll be on armor already, so when you get a piece of armor drop, you might have it, or a weapon. A lot of weapons will actually have mods attached to them as well. We're going to cover weapon mods here in a second. You can get them from raids, so if there's specific mods you're looking for, so there's Taken, Fallen, and Hive mods. Those 3 mods specifically come from raids, so you want to keep those in mind if you're looking for. Remember, a lot of the sources for those raids and mods are going away, except for Taken. They'll still be available coming into November here, so keep that in mind if you're going to try and hunt down some of these mods. And I highly recommend it if you're not a full New Light player. If you have access to the DLCs, they are extremely powerful, and we're going to see that with a few builds as well when we talk about some of the Taken mods. And I'd already talked about why you need to look into this, because it's going to improve the way you play the game extremely, just by even doing a basic build like we're going to talk about here soon. Weapon mods. Weapon mods. Let's find this guy here. So, when you look at a weapon, you're going to have all your perks and everything, which we really haven't covered. I did say there is a lot of videos out there a long time ago to talk about what perks you want to look for on a gun. This is my new favorite sniper, strictly because I actually get 4 times the charm and high impact reserves. It shoots extremely fast. I don't have to reload, even though the magazine down here, you can't see it. It says 7. I actually get 11 rounds before having to reload because of 4 times the charm, as long as I hit the crit. And how I'm actually able to achieve that is backup mag. So by not having one of the mag perks here, I can't increase that magazine size. So I have to use a backup mag to get that up, to get the rounds up. If I wasn't going to be using this, if I was, let's say I had one of the mag slots I wanted here, and I wanted to have a boss spec on here, I could put that on there. Now, boss specs, I believe the specs do about 8% damage, extra damage from the weapons when you put them on. If you were fighting Taken and you were luckily enough to get the Taken spec mod from Last Wish, this actually gives you a 10% increase to Taken enemies. So if you are fighting Taken, use a Taken spec. The new dungeon, Taken spec. Prophecy, Taken spec everything if you can get your hands on it. Well, again, a little tricky if you don't have access to Last Wish, but so weapon mods, these will actually increase your damage output. You have ones that can actually make your recoil better. Icarus Grip, a PvP favorite. It gives you in-air accuracy. So if you're using a hand cannon in PvP and you want to be able to shoot more accurately while jumping in the air, that's your mod. Increased hipfire. I know there's some crazy builds out there with hipfire sniper rifles, so keep that in mind. Most of these mods you can actually pick up from the gunsmith. There is a few that you cannot. So, we talked about this before. In an earlier episode, you saw me just going crazy trying to get some mods, some mod components. So if you head over to the gunsmith and you take a peek, he actually sells a few mods every day. They cycle out. So every day you need to come back, you have a chance of seeing what mods are available. So right now it's targeting adjuster. So if you didn't have that, you could pick it up for 10 mod components. Now to get mod components, you can do these bounties, and then you'll get mod components every day. And you know, you do enough of them, you start saving up a bunch. There is another place that you can get mod components, and we're actually going to head there right now. And we're going to show just a little bit about some additional mods you can actually get. And these, I believe, are going away, so get these ASAP. So if you go down to Ada in the Black Armory, Oh, he's got Felwinter's Helm on too. Cool. We'll talk about why that's my favorite exotic in the game right now as well. So if you go down to Ada here. So Ada 1's the Black Armory vendor. In our free-to-play, we went through her once, but we did get access to this page. So page 2, if you scroll over here, you can actually buy mod components here. So if you don't want to have to keep doing the gunsmith bounties, start farming up gunsmith materials and legendary shards. And you can get those just by deleting weapons. Easy enough. And then for one of these, you can actually acquire mod components. So 3 shards, 25 gunsmith materials, free mod component. Get 10 of those. Buy the mod over at our friendly neighborhood gunsmith. Okay? I don't have the icon here because this account I already have all of the bounties or all the mods. But Ada, we'll go back into our sniper rifle here, sells some very specific mods that are actually Black Armory weapon mods. So this one here, Radar Boost, gives you a little bit more range, but it also narrows the field so you can actually see where they're coming from better. Sprint Grip. Rampage Spec, which actually gives you another second or so during Rampage, which is quite fun. Dragonfly Spec, so you actually get bigger explosions. There is... oh, where is it here? Surrounded Spec, and also Quick Access Sling. So those mods are from Black Armory only, so make sure you guys go check those out. Get them from Ada before they go. Try and buy those, okay? It's a bit of a random roll to get them, but I believe it's actually set so as long as you just spam her, you're gonna get them all sequentially. So spam her until the little icon disappears. I believe that's how it works. If it doesn't, sorry, but you're just gonna have to try and roll the dice a little bit more. So keep that in mind. Get those mods before they go away. Some of them are fantastic. Little hint, Quick Access Sling on a tube grenade launcher. It's a win. Okay. Thank you, Ada. Another place you guys can pick up mods, and we're going to talk about seasonal mods a little bit here as well. Now that we're down in this area, and we're going to head over here to our recaster. Now, when we talk about the seasonal mods, some of the old seasonal mods, so the mods from Season of Undying, Season of Dawn, and damn, what was the other one? I always call it Season of Warmind, the previous one that we just did. They actually cycle in periodically into Gunsmith's inventory, so keep an eye out for those too. Now, no, wrong one. So, seasonal mods. Okay. We talked about weapon mods. I have a list I have to scratch off. That's how much we have on these lists. Seasonal mods. Those are what are down here at the bottom. Now, if you're not buying seasonal mods every season, start buying them. The amount that you can actually start playing with these and the way that Bungie has changed them is actually going to be extremely good moving forward. So the seasonal mods used to only be able to be equipped into one piece of armor, the season armor, and that was it. So in order to keep a build you had working with, if you had something cool like this supercharged mod in there, you would have to keep that piece of armor and then never be able to change it. Well, Bungie made the change so that the seasonal mod slot is actually going to be a yearly mod slot. So any mods that drop from that current and future during that year. So right now, everything from this season back all the way to Undying, you can equip into this armor. Okay. So all of these are different mods. So you can see Arrival mod, Dawn mod, Worthy mod, Season of the Worthy. That's what it was. So all of these can be equipped into the final slot now. That's going to be how it works moving forward from now on. So when you get into Beyond Light, that armor is going to be good for basically the entire year moving forward. And you're just going to be able to slot in the new seasonal mods for the entire year in that armor set. So that's what seasonal mods are. If you're not buying them, buy them all, please. They can actually have some amazing synergies with the older mods, and you'll see that in one of the builds here. We actually use an Arrival mod with some Dawn mods as well. They can be used with Warminds, so make sure you pick them up, and they offer some really unique bonuses that can really benefit your playstyle. So make sure you buy all these. Just Try and buy them all. Every season, buy all the mods. This first slot actually rotates every day. It goes through all of the mods that aren't listed here. All of these are permanent, except for this one. It cycles every day. So you just pick them up as you go and just get that first one. I think it's every 4 or so weeks, and then you rotate back to the start again. Seasonal mods, we got that. Now, if you've been playing for a little bit, you're probably familiar or you've looked up the artifact. So this is where we find artifact mods. So this is armor mods and also weapon mods. How this works is as you rank up, you get more bonus XP and you can actually get slots for this. Currently, I have all of these ones picked out for doing Grandmaster Nightfalls. So all of these mods, and I'm not going to go into specifically what they do. If you've, like I said, if you've done a little bit of Destiny, you probably run into these champions before and maybe looked up how to stop them or anything like that, and that's where you're going to find these mods. Now, there's a few mods up here that start to get extremely powerful. This is where you want to be heading, so get these out of the way and get up here. I don't use any of these middle ones. I think they're gimmicky. If you want Glimmer, you can just go get Glimmer. So, but something like Oppressive Darkness, so using a Void Grenade adds a weakening effect. It actually makes enemies take, 30% more damage. So that's super good. Just by throwing a grenade, you get bonus damage. Countercharge I've been using a lot, and in addition to that, Breach Resonator. So some of these things you're going to see in a couple of the builds here, and you'll kind of understand as I break down some of those builds why some of these become extremely powerful when using with some of our other mods we have. So that's why I said try and get as many mods as possible. With this, you only get, I believe it's 12 slots to purchase. So you can only buy 12 of these mods at a time. But you can always reset it down here. I've already reset a couple times this season, so it actually gets really expensive to reset this. So kind of go through, know what you want to pick out, and try not to reset as much as possible. These do change every season. Some of them come back, some don't. So they changed it. So this used to be anti-barrier rounds used to just be on specific weapons. This can be slotted in both auto rifles and submachine guns. Same thing with the hand cannon here as well. So these do cycle and change. Next season, they're going to be completely different. So we'll see what they have for us then. But make sure you keep an eye and pick out your artifact mods. Okay. A little bit on builds before we move into actually showing off my main build that I run basically every single time I log into Destiny on my Warlock. There's some things you can do to synergize between your perks and your abilities to make stuff happen a little bit better. And that all comes down to a lot of the mods. So for an example here, if I was going to go into this mod here, I almost exclusively run Void affinities on all of these because I want access to stuff like Dire Artillery and Remote Connection. So keeping those in mind. There is a New Light episode we're going to talk about with Iron Banner, and what I'll actually do is I'm going to go into the, before I move along, because I actually forgot about this earlier. Sorry, my brain is scattered right now because I actually forgot to write it down. Something very important you want to look for is when it comes to weapon mods, armor mods, you can actually get regular versions. So for an example here, we have auto rifle targeting. Sorry, I'll go with something else here. What do we got on the next page? I want to find one. Here we go. So momentum transfer. So you actually get causing damage with a grenade reduces your melee cooldown. And then right next to it, you'll actually see an enhanced momentum transfer. Now, the way you can tell it's enhanced is it has a little plus sign by it somewhere. Almost every mod does. So here you can see auto rifle reloader. That's the regular one. Enhanced auto rifle reloader has the plus sign below it. Hovering also on every mod shows you what it does. All of the enhanced mods come from pinnacle level activities, but one little trick you can do is if you don't have a lot of these mods and you're going to play Iron Banner, every time you hand in a package to Lord Saladin, you actually have a chance of getting an enhanced mod you don't currently have. So if you're able just to go and get a whole bunch of the tokens, you can just spam them into him and you'll start getting a ton of enhanced mods. So keep that in your back pocket. Iron Banner is coming up this week in Destiny, the week of September 8th. It'll be live. So go and spam those tokens, get as many as you can, and try to knock off a bunch of these enhanced mods, because there is quite a few as you go through all of these, including stuff like enhanced ashes to asset. This one's a little different. You'll actually see they switched the color scheme, so they inverted it. So regular ashes to assets and then enhanced ashes to assets, so you get more super energy on grenade kills. So keep in mind, you want to be looking for a lot of these regular mods and enhanced mods so that you can build some pretty cool synergies within that. So keep those in mind and check out this mod page because you're going to want to see what's going on. All right, back into here. So we were talking about quickly here, so all these mods here do something different. Some stuff like this, like Dynamo, if I wanted to try and get my super back a little bit faster, reduces my super cooldown when using my class ability near enemies. So if I have somebody come close to me and I use my class ability, this works really good for hunters because they can dodge near enemies. You're actually going to get a bit of your super energy back as you do those dodges. Now, this was broken at one point a couple seasons ago, and you're actually able just to dodge when you double stack these over and over and over again, and you'd get your super energy in within like 5 or 6 dodges. It was pretty insane, but that's been patched out. Now, you can stack mods, okay? So if I wanted to put this on here for remote connection, I could also put another remote connection on here. Now, the way this works is there is diminishing returns. You're not going to get double. You're probably going to get about 1.5 by double stacking these that you would normally get from this. So you choose if it's worth it. Personally, this is a PvE build, so we're rocking Oppressive Darkness. Sometimes it is beneficial to do some double stacking. So what you can do is if you have enough slots, you can actually put a regular... so if you were doing PvP and you wanted... Let me see here. Here's a good example. So if we had nothing in here, you could actually put an enhanced targeting and a regular targeting together for a total of 10. So that would be a fully masterworked item, and you'd be able to get a total of 10. And with this one, you end up with essentially kind of double about the aim assist, because I believe enhanced is 1.5, and then with the diminishing returns, this drops from 1 to 5, so then you get a double out of that. So it's actually quite good if you wanted to run 2 of these instead of 1. Don't quote me on those numbers. That's just a guess. We don't have actual data on that. But that's a way you could actually get bonuses from those. So keep that in mind when you're doing any double stacking of mods. Oh, so much to talk about with builds. Let's jump into my versatile Warlock build. So, Fellwinter's Helmet is currently one of my favorite exotics in the game. I think it's amazing for PvE. The reason for that is its perks here. So whether you do a melee, so if you use the powered melee, so if you killed an enemy with a melee, it's going to send out a pulse of void energy, and what that does is it does the exact same thing as your Oppressive Darkness grenade. It actually weakens every enemy caught in that field by 30%, so they take about 30% more damage. It also blinds them. So you'll actually see a bunch of enemies that just, if you're like Thrall, for example, they cover their head and they walk away from you very confused. Fantastic for PvE. You jump in, you get a melee kill, boom. They all get suppressed in that area, and now you're free to just go ham and kill the rest. In addition to that, finishers. Okay? Finishers cause this to go off as well. So if you've got an enemy weak in the middle of a whole bunch of ads, and you charge in there with a finisher, remember, finishers can lock on from pretty far away. It's going to do the exact same weakening effect on every ad in that area. It's also going to increase the field even larger. So way more than just using your melee. So I actually use this for finishers way more, because every time I get a finisher, boom, suppressed. Another finisher, boom, suppressed. And you can just actually keep chaining those finishers over and over and over again. And that weakening effect, like Oppressive Darkness, lasts longer when that happens. So Fellwinter's Helmet on a Warlock, absolutely amazing when it comes to like high level PvE stuff. So the main items behind this build, when it comes to building out your stuff, I usually masterwork my class items first for a build. The reason for that is class items, when they don't have anything, they're not masterworked, they actually have no stat values. So on the screen behind me here, you can't see it. Everything is at 0, and the total is actually 0 on this gear. So when we go back to the main screen, when you hover this, there is nothing. It says no totals, no nothing. But when I go over top of something that's masterworked, you can see it says 12. So masterworking your class item gives you a +2 to every single one of your stats right off the bat. So that's why I always masterwork my class items first. With these class items, they're all virtually built the exact same way. So if I want Fallen Armaments, which this mod, Armaments, if you guys have ever heard that before, when you get a kill with a grenade, you get heavy ammo magically shows up in your weapons reserves. So I have Fallen Armaments on this guy. If I need Taken, I just go over here to my Bond of the Great Hunt, transfer that over. Now I have Taken Armaments. If I'm fighting Hive, I can actually just scroll over here and grab my Hive Armaments. None of these are ornamented. They're all normal from the raids. So this one's from Crown of Sorrow. This one's from, Scourge of the Past. And this one's from Last Wish. The reason I do that is it's much faster for me just to switch out these bonds than per se go, oh, Fallen. Oh, I'm taking Taken. I'm just going to go in here and switch this to Taken. It really doesn't cost me anything. It's 500 Glimmer. But then I have to remember that I've switched those off. And it's much easier for me if I just go in the middle of the fight. We're like, oh, we're doing this. Go here. Click here. Boop. Taken. We're done. We're back in the fight. Okay. I did this a lot in Gambit and Gambit Prime. Just having it cycled out so I could just quickly get armaments on an enemy and then switch back to a different armor set after that. So if it's like, oh, there's Taken at the bank, put this on, get a grenade kill, get free ammo, and then switch back to my other set. So that's why I masterwork almost all of my class items right off the bat. Anything that's going to have like a specific mod to it, I'm going to be masterworking that because it gives me a stat bonus, but it also helps me to cycle out different armaments as well. When these go away, that'll be a sad day, and we'll just have to use something else. So class item on this. What you'll see with this build is I actually run 2 major resists right up here. So the major resists give me a decrease to damage taken from the big yellow bars. The gold bars, sorry. Any of those big knights you might find running around. What that does is double stacking it. One of them is 10%. 2 of them is around 18% damage reduction. Don't go more than that because then it starts really dropping down and you're not getting as much increase anymore. So the diminishing returns on these goes up fairly exponentially. But I always usually recommend double stacking at least 2 of those just for that max damage reduction. I have an additional minor resist in here. You could put something else in there, but it fit the build and I wanted a little bit of protection from, you know, your standard trash ads just kind of running around trying to melee you or something like that. And then on the helmet, on almost all my helmets, I actually run a concussive dampener. This is a little secret hidden mod. A lot of people should be using this a lot more. It reduces incoming damage from AoE attacks. So when knights or acolytes shoot off those grenades that hit you and cause fire everywhere, this actually helps you live longer. So keep one of those on at all times. Don't stack them, just one. Now with this build, we're not going to go into a lot of the scav mods or the reserve mods, anything like that. We're going to just look at the main mods we have in here. So this is what's called a charged with light build. What it does is when I become charged with light, which is this here, this is from Dawn. So whenever I pick up an orb of light, or you can do this in a ton of other fashions, but for this build, this is the max DPS build. Whenever I pick up an orb, I become charged with light. Now, why I do this? I use this build. Let's lock that just in case. I use this build for doing help runs with my clan or just getting through a lot of high level content. So something like the dungeons, the Pit of Heresy or Prophecy. I use this build for that all the time. And what I do is when we drop down into the boss room, I either have one of my teammates drop a rift or I have them drop a bubble depending on what character they're on. And then I pick up those orbs they drop and I become charged with light. Now with charged with light, you need, and this is really important, you need a way to become charged with light, which is this mod here. you also need a way to dissipate charged with light. And what I mean by that is here for high energy fire. So while you're charged with light, okay, you gain bonus weapon damage. Now, this is high energy fire. Do not be confused by this. It is not specific to your energy weapon. This is for all your weapons. High energy fire is for all of your weapons, not your energy weapon, all of them. So you gain bonus weapon damage. When you defeat an enemy, it takes away one of your stacks of light. Now here's the ender part of that. On my chest piece, there's 2 mods like this. So charged up, this mod here actually allows me an additional charge with light. So whenever I become charged with light, if I pick up 2 orbs, I can become charged with light times 2. So if I kill one enemy, I'm still charged with light. And this works really well for the dungeon boss right now, because if you have your teammates shooting, or even raid bosses, if they're killing all the mobs that are running around and you focus on the boss, as long as you do not kill an enemy, you have bonus weapon damage the entire fight. Why that comes important? If you have access to Anarchy, high energy fire works with Anarchy. So while you're charged with light, you have an Anarchy attached to the boss, you're doing bonus damage. Then you just keep shooting at him with whatever else you have. This build is absolutely insane. I love it. It is my favorite build in Destiny right now. There is a few other things you can do. There's another mod in here that is actually for sale today, which we saw earlier, called Charged Up. This mod allows you 2 additional charge of stacks with light for a maximum of 5. So you can actually keep stacking and stacking and stacking until you get about 4. The max I've ever gotten with 4. There's a little bit of a weird glitch to get the 5th. I don't remember how it's done, but this is extremely good, and I think I've used this in a few other builds, but this one here is very good. But because I have a bunch of other mods in here as well, I can't use it. So we're just going with the additional stack. So times 2, which means if I accidentally kill an enemy during a fight, that's fine. I'm still charged up. I can still do damage on the boss and do tons of extra DPS. So just to go over this max DPS build here again, taking charge when I pick up an orb, this is your choice. I prefer taking charged. Charged up so you can have 2 charged with light. High energy fire so you can dissipate that charge with light, but you're using this for boss damage. So this allows you just to go ham on a boss and do as much damage as possible. In addition to that, I'm on a Void subclass, so I'm also throwing an Oppressive Darkness grenade at them, doing even more damage. And with this subclass, if I'm running Void, I'm actually going to run Bottom Tree here. So when I hit them, normally what I do when I load into the boss room, I grab the orbs from the bubble, I throw an Oppressive Darkness grenade, I use my Nova Bomb right away on the boss, and then I shoot 2 Anarchies at him. So what's happening there is he's Oppressive Darkness, he's taking bonus damage from my Nova Bomb that's just sitting there hitting him constantly because of the Oppressive Darkness grenade. Then the Anarchy's hitting him, and he's now taking bonus damage from the Anarchy and my subsequent mountaintop shots from high energy fire. So that is why this build is so much fun. I love it. You guys should give it a shot. It's very simple build, very easy to use. So keep an eye out for this one. Now, another build. So this is the versatile build. Now, this doesn't just work on Warlock. This works on every class. Your hunters can do this build too. These are not specific mods for Warlocks. This build was developed on a Warlock, but you can use it on any character. So whether you're a Titan or a Hunter, you can use the high energy fire build. Go for it. Super fun. Now, let's talk a couple of builds that I have specifically made up here. So another build that I'm currently using. Which one is that? Yeah, that's the one. I don't think we have to switch this. I believe this one's similar. And yes. All right. So this build here, I know it looks exactly like the other one, is my Grandmaster Nightfall build. So on this one, this can change to anything I want. So for an example, if I need to be doing finishers in order to get special ammo, I can actually put this one on and have special ammo finisher. So whenever I do a finisher, it consumes some of my super energy, but I generate green ammo every single time. But if we're doing armament based stuff, I'll usually keep these on so we can get free heavy ammo, because heavy is very important. Now, this is again another version of the higher energy fire build, but the idea behind it is to keep getting as many stacks as possible. So we have a way to store charge with light. So this guy here, the Dawn mod, gains an additional charge with light every time I get charged with light. So whenever I get one charge with light, I actually get two. So I'm doubling down on getting those charged with lights. So again, this is another charge with light build. How I'm becoming charged with light is right here. Countercharge. This is a artifact mod that's available this season. I become charged with light whenever myself or a member of my fire team uses shuts down a barrier champion's ability. So that's either a stagger, a disrupt, or a pierce on the champions. So that's why this is for Grandmasters, by the way. Just keeping that out there. So whenever they do that, I become charged with light ×2. On top of that, we've also got supercharged in this build. So every time I become charged with light ×2, the next time it happens, I can become charged with light ×4. Just from 2 staggers, okay? Keep with me on this. We also have Breach Resonator. So I get melee and grenade energy whenever we shut down, whenever there's a final blow with a shield piercing weapon, so the anti-barrier weapons, or, and here's the or for this one, a member of my fire team shuts down a barrier champion. So whether it's an unstoppable, a disrupt, or an anti-barrier. So every time that we do that, I get energy back. The synergy on this build is absolutely insane. And then, of course, to dissipate this, we have high energy fire. So I have 4 stacks with light very quickly, and I'm doing bonus damage on everything I shoot at. So all the champions, every time that I get hit, or every time that we shut down or disrupt a barrier, I can shoot that barrier and have bonus damage every single engagement with these thick Grandmaster enemies. That is why this build is so much fun. It's a very specific build for a very specific thing, and that's the Grandmaster Nightfalls. It works well. I'm really liking this build for GMs. It's been super, super fun. So, Grandmaster build. Very cool. A build I was actually playing with recently, and we'll just touch on this one just a little bit, because it's actually a new build I was working on earlier today. There we go. So this is actually a build to do a solo Grandmaster Nightfall. A lot of it has to do with just regular mods. So if I'm going to fight Taken, it's going to be a Taken build here as well. Mostly going for overload grenades, using the Breach Resonator to get, every time I stagger, I'm getting energy back again. Mostly focusing on using a lot of grenades, so improve charging time for void grenades to do disruptions or cause damage to enemies. One of the big ones here is actually Taken repurposing. Now, the repurposing mod has a bit of a funny glitch to it. If you get a finisher on a Taken enemy while using Taken repurposing, you actually get your grenade energy back, even though you didn't take down a shield. Now, this mod does specifically say taking down a Taken shield replenishes your grenade ability, but for some reason, using a finisher does the exact same thing. So you get a finisher, you get your grenade, you throw your grenade. You get a finisher, you get your grenade, throw your grenade. Very weird, super fun to use. So this one doesn't have any crazy synergy to it. It's just something really cool that is going to be a lot of fun to go and have some fun with. So not every build needs to have a super insane purpose, but a solo Grandmaster should be pretty fun. Okay, this build here. So, this is a super fun finisher build, and this is going to be the last build we're going to cover before we switch to the Hunter PvP build. Thank you guys for sticking around, whoever wanted to watch that. This is actually a really long episode. Now, this build here is actually a new one I was developing. This one is strictly for doing a lot of finishers, and it has a very unique item down here that we're going to talk about. Pretty cool. I like it. So, supercharged. So as you can see here, we're using the supercharged mod again so we can stack up as many charged with light as we can get. We already talked about this one. Don't need to go into too much detail there. On here, sustained charge. So this is an arrival mod. So from this season, so you can see how these are working together. Sustained charge is become charged with light by rapidly defeating combatants with auto rifles, trace rifles, or machine guns. Here's the key point of this build. The machine guns. We're using Xenophage. In addition to that, we are using Taken Repurposing again for some fun. And here is where we get to the real part, is actually down here on our class item. So, Storm of Lead. This mod gains super energy on machine gun final blows. So if we're killing a lot of ads with that machine gun, Xenophage causes area of effect damage when it explodes, when it hits an enemy. We're going to get super energy from that. This is where we get into some fun parts. Reactive Repulse. So this is an arrival mod as well. This one here is while you're charged with light, taking damage when surrounded by a combatant allows you to emit a burst of damaging arc energy that consumes 1 stack of light. So, if you get shot, you're gonna dissipate a charge if you're surrounded. So you can actually get those stacks of light and just hang on to them for a really long time. The second part of this mod is actually where the magic is, because I actually don't care if I become charged with light with this mod. That's just a bonus of being able to do area damage. Gain a powerful overshield while performing a finisher. And it is thick, okay? So now, here's the synergy to this build. You go in for a finisher. We're using Fellwinter's Helm. You get that finisher off. Everyone's blinded. If you were surrounded at the time, you're going to cause an emittance of arc energy. In addition to that, you also have a chunky overshield, which means you're not going to die. Absolutely fantastic. You can just rush in, finish stuff, dissipate energy if you're surrounded, blind everybody at the same time, but you're also getting an overshield to save your life. Absolutely amazing. This one's actually pretty fun. I was messing around with this build. A lot of fun. So keep an eye out for these. Make sure you read the fine print. There's always some fine print on a lot of these mods. One we're going to see later is actually this, not Radiant Light here, sorry. Powerful Friends. We're going to see what that does a little bit later. Same thing with Radiant Light. So you can see casting your super causes nearby allies to become charged with light, but it also gives you a 20 increase to your strength. And you're going to see why Powerful Friends is very powerful here in a second. So those are the Warlock builds for today. I hope some of those builds help somebody, maybe even just the basic build. So become charged with light, store charged with light, dissipate charged with light. Those are your key components for a good charged with light build. Look at them, read the mods, see what they do, and see if you can make some really cool builds. There is builds for tons of little things. There's the sidearm build right now that can massively give you tons of damage on a sidearm. I like the versatility build of just being able to use kind of whatever weapon and getting a bonus damage from that. It's kind of like having a pocket rampage on every single one of my weapons. So let's switch to the Hunter and we'll check out my favorite PvP build. We're almost to an hour on this episode, guys. I apologize, very long, but we're covering quite a bit of content here. All right. The Hunter build. Welcome to my main account's PvP Hunter. This build is very crazy. It was very hard to put together, and I absolutely love it. If you're checking out the stats, that's the key component for PvP we talked about. If you take a look, there's some kind of shenanigans going on with this build. Previously to this season, I actually had 100 mobility, 100 recovery, and 100 intellect. Now with the changes to a few mods, specifically Powerful Friends, that build is no longer achievable, except with the way I've factored this build now. So let's kind of get into this. I'm actually using a lot of mods on this, so recovery mods, mobility mods, all those sort of things. But what we're going to be getting is you're going to see these armor pieces, a lot of them are extremely spiky. So what that means is a lot of the stats are way out there. So like 28 intellect on this build here. This one here, you can see 35, 24, 26. These are what we call spiky builds. So a key component of this is this mod right here, Powerful Friends. I don't care about becoming charged with light with this. I'm looking for the stat bonus. So when you have an arc mod attached to this armor piece, you actually get 20 mobility in addition to whatever you've got on there now. So this armor piece actually only has, 13 mobility, but with this mod, it has 35 with the masterwork. So with that, Traction, this is a really unique mod, guys. Keep this in your back pocket. Traction actually adds a bunch of mobility to your build. It actually gives it a +4, and I believe somebody told me there was a hidden +5 on that as well. I can't confirm that, but just know adding Traction as one of your mods is going to increase your mobility. So keep that in mind. I always put Traction on here because I want to try and get that as close to 100 as possible. Down here we have a recovery mod. Now, theoretically, this build here, if played right in PvP, is still 100, 100, 100. How that factors in here is all on my class item. So as you can see, I'm only sitting at 90 intellect. It doesn't matter the extra points there, guys. I didn't talk about this as well. Unless you're hitting those little gaps in there, unless they're full, it doesn't matter. So me having 93 does absolutely nothing. It still counts as 90. The same thing as my 94 counts as 90. Unless you're at 100, it doesn't count. So this one is a perfect 100 stat. So 32, still a 30. Keep that in mind. So with my intellect, you can see I'm only sitting at 90. So I'm actually missing out on that additional 4-second cooldown to get my super. 4 seconds might not seem like a lot, but it is. In addition to that, my mobility here, you can see I'm at 11 for my cooldown. My next tier 10 would actually be a 9-second cooldown, giving me a 3-second drop in when I can use my dodge again. And as you know, hunters, you dodge a lot. You're going to want that dodge back. With this build, I'm running Worm Husk, so I actually get health back every time I dodge and a shield bump, which helps with my low resilience stats, so that way I can tank some extra shots. So if somebody puts a shot into me with Thorn, I dodge instantly. I'm going to live through those additional Thorn ticks. So keep that in mind. Very good. How I'm boosting these, okay? Because theoretically, like I said, this build still counts as 100 and 100. Is down here on my class item. These two mods right here. So normally I snipe with this character. Getting a sniper kill gives me super energy. If I was using a grenade launcher, I would put dire artillery on. Getting a grenade launcher kill gives me super energy. So this is going to start bumping us up. Every time I get a snipe, I'm getting super energy, which decreases the amount of time it's going to take for me to get my super. Thus, being at a level 9 intellect, I'm almost getting that level 100 intellect stat. For my dodge, though, what I'm using is Perpetuation. Reduces class ability cooldown when using my class ability. Fantastic. So, whether I'm using 100 mobility or 90, as long as I've got something to bump it up, I'm still actually getting that little hidden bonus to give me that level. Now you can do this a few different ways. Another item you can use, I don't have it on me right now, is where is it? Dragon Shadow. Let's transfer that over here quick actually, so you guys can actually see what Dragon Shadow, that's my warlock. We want hunter. So Dragon Shadow here. The exotic perk on this is Wraith Metal Mail. So dodging reloads all weapons and increases both movement speed and weapon handling. So what that does is it actually gives you a plus 50 to your mobility. So if you're sitting at 50 mobility on your build and you have this on, whenever you dodge, you're going to get that max cooldown on your dodge. And you can actually go from having 50% all the way to 100, and it'll cool down before Wraith Metal Mail wears off. So you actually jump that increase insanely quick. So very good exotic to use if you're not going to run a Worm Husk. This build I specifically built around using a Worm Husk, but I wanted to try and maintain that 100, 100, 100. Now, just to close it off, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to load in. Let's do Rumble. Now we'll do Bannerfall, because why not? And we're going to load into a private match, and I'm going to do a dodge and show you how that kind of works out. I'm actually kind of curious what this build comes to. 60. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a dodge with this Worm Husk build on, and you guys feel free to count at home, and you can see how fast it comes back. You can look at the left side of your screen for the cooldown, and you'll see how it goes. Rumble. So here we go. So by the time that exits, I'm at about, just over halfway, and now we're there. Back at our full. Now let's switch this build out quickly here. So this is a tier 6 mobility cooldown. You can see how slow this does come up. I was only at a quarter by the time it wore off. And it's still slowly climbing up there. That is the beauty of that build. So I'll just show those stats one more time in case you guys want to try and get towards that, work towards that. My hunter is actually going to be, I'm going to try and get this build back again in a future season. So I'm going to be grinding out armor in Beyond Light to get this build again. So again, 100, 100, 100 effectively is how this build works out. So let's head on up to orbit and we will shut down this extremely long episode, but I really, really, really hope you guys learned a little bit about builds in Destiny, saw why they're so important, and I think people really need to strive towards working on their build crafting and becoming more efficient with quickly deciding on builds based on older content, new seasons, all of those different things, finding those synergies between what a perk can do for you or what a build, an armor mod can do for you in all of your builds. So thank you guys for watching this extremely long episode. I think we're going to hit that 1 hour mark. I really appreciate it. If you guys have enjoyed the content, smash the living shit out of the like button and subscribe to the channel for future content. You can also come down. We're starting a new stream schedule on Twitch. You can come down and check us out live at twitch.tv/Dexival. And I hope you guys really do. I really hope you guys got something out of this episode. See you guys in the next one.